Welcome back into Sports Memo's Betting Podcast, college football, every game on the board, section number 3 with Robbie Veno. Rob, welcome into the pod. How are you?
I am good tonight, Drew. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. Excited to get after these games. Good one up first. Battle for LA, UCLA at USC. We got the Trojans, 14 in the Coliseum, 65.5 the total, Robbie.
Yeah, pretty big push to the over, Drew. Either today, I think it happened today, but we were looking at 62.5 this morning, and then I saw as high as 66 in some places later this evening here on the East Coast. So certainly there's some over money out there. Can't say that I would disagree with it, but let's start with the fact that Chip Kelly last year upset Clay Helton, and both of these coaches at times have been on the very hot seat. So it's an important game for both of these head coaches. Like I say, last year, UCLA walks in as a dog, 3-point dog, wins 34-27. Fundamentally, Drew, this USC pass offense just can't be stopped right now. They're so good. Keaton Slovis, since he's come back with that trio of wide receivers, St. Brown, Pittman. Tyler Vaughns didn't even play last week. He'll play here this week. But they threw for 477 2 weeks ago against Arizona State, 406 against California, who's had a real good defense for the majority of the season in the Pac-12. And, what makes those numbers so outstanding is the fact that USC can't run the ball a lick right now. They averaged under 3 yards a carry, only gained 70 and 56 rushing yards in those two games. But yet they were still able to just drop back and throw and score points. So I think they'll do it here. I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson and that UCLA offense will have success as well. Like I said earlier, I can't disagree with those who got to the over before the big push here this evening. At this price tag, 66, it's getting a little dicey when you start cutting through these key numbers in the 60s. But it still might have some value, Drew. I also think more than the total itself that the side holds value. I don't think UCLA deserves to be getting 14 points here. I think they can slide in under that number. USC's defense has been injured all season long, and they haven't necessarily been great. 2 good games the last couple, but I think UCLA makes some moves here, some adjustments, scores points. I would take UCLA plus the 14.
Robbie, next up, we got Cal Stanford. Looks like the Cardinal laying 2.5 on the farm, 40 the total here.
Yeah, 2 quarterback situations to keep an eye on here for Cal. Sophomore Chase Garbers came back last week. He had missed a few games in a row for Cal and immediately gets hurt. 12:31 left in the second quarter, bangs up his shoulder. Devin Modster comes in, did not play well at all. For Stanford, you have KJ Costello, who's questionable here. Their number 1 quarterback. He didn't play last week, but Davis Mills did, and all he did was throw for 504 yards. Had a couple of picks in there, which were costly, but 504 with 3 TDs. So I don't think it matters which quarterback Stanford rolls out there. I think it does matter which quarterback Cal rolls out there because Garber's certainly the better of the two. Stanford has kind of switched gears, Drew. They're passing a little bit more than they're running at this point in time. Last week it was a lot more. 50 pass attempts, only 10 rushes. It's un-Stanford-like, but they can't run the football right now. And that's going to be key here against California. I'll say this. Cal's defense, which was stellar to start the season, has shown some cracks. It's been a long season with a bad offense that has left that defense on the field quite a bit. And their last 3 weeks show it. 473 yards to Utah, 423 to Washington State, 462 to USC. It's a huge rivalry. I think you can throw out their records because neither team is a dominant team by any means. But I do think Stanford has the capability to make one big play where Cal doesn't, or one more big play than Cal does. For me, it would be Stanford here. A little surprised that the total is down to 40, Drew, because in college football nowadays, 24-17 can happen in a half, never mind a full game. So maybe a look at the over here as well, but I think Stanford's the right side.
Oregon State at Washington State up next, Robbie, to finish off the trifecta of Pac-12 games to start off this section of the podcast. 76 being the total, 10 in the hook. That's what Washington State is laying in Pullman.
Yeah, Oregon State's been good on the road. 4-0 against the spread on the road. 7-3 against the spread overall. So 2 good records out of Oregon State. They've been a darling this year. They've covered numbers for people, partially due to the fact that they play really good offense. There's only been a couple of games where they were shut down. While those numbers sound good, Drew, this line is 10.5. Washington State favored. And Oregon State has 5 straight up losses this year. 3 of those are by more than 10.5. So they do have the potential to lose by this price, as well as cover at any price. So it kind of leaves you on both sides of the fence where they're concerned. If you look at Washington State, averaging 54 points a game at home. They've scored 41 or more every time they're on their home field. They're 3-1 against the spread versus FBS teams at home. All 3 of those wins by 27 or more. So you have a team that blows everybody out when they win at home. You have a team that is susceptible to losing by double digits when they lose. Maybe numbers tell you that Washington State would be a halfway decent play. However, the head coach of Oregon State, Jonathan Smith, who's done a great job, he was interviewed and asked if he would lean more on time of possession to try and keep Mike Leach's offense off the field. And he basically said, we have to score every time we get the ball because we're not going to beat this team 17-10. That would lend you to, look at the over, or lead you to look at the over a little bit. Total's really out of control here at 76.5, so I won't be there either over or under. You need 38 aside. It's not that it's not doable. It's just that it's extremely high total here. Both of these teams need this win. Believe it or not, Washington State's not bowl eligible yet. So both of these teams sit at 5-5. They both need a win here. And next week, their season finales don't look promising because both of them have to go on the road to play their in-state rival. For Oregon State, it would be going to Eugene, not going to be favored. For Washington State, they'd have to go to Seattle to play Washington, probably won't be favored. So this game becomes really important. Because of that, I'm going to lean towards Oregon State plus the 10.5. I think they can do enough offensively to duck in under the number. Not as strong, not with real conviction, but I would look at Oregon State.
Good stuff, Robbie. Let's head to the Sun Belt. Up next, rotation number 171, 172. 12 noon Pacific kick here. We got Georgia Southern at Arkansas State. Competitively priced game, Robbie. Seeing Pick'em or Georgia Southern laying 1 in Jonesboro. 55.5 the total.
Yeah, we love these Sun Belt games, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
The Georgia Southern side, Drew, if you just look at what they've done offensively the last 3 weeks, you're not wowed by anything. They haven't gained more than 351 yards in any game of their last 3. Yet they're 2-1, and they've put up some points. When you look at how they scored those points the last 3 weeks, all of a sudden they're an explosive team. 7 touchdowns of 25-plus yards, 2 non-offensive TDs. They ran an onside kick back at the end of the game last week for a touchdown, and they also had an interception return for a touchdown. Can that stuff hold up? And my answer to that would be against this team probably yes, because this is the perfect fundamental fit for both sides here. For Georgia Southern, you have a dominant run offense against an absolute miserable run defense. Arkansas State ranks 118th in the nation out of 130 teams against the run, give up 218 yards per game. Check mark next to Georgia Southern's offense being able to move the football. But the same check mark is applied to Arkansas State, who has thrown the football very well the last couple of weeks. Remember, we had this game a few weeks back, and Arkansas State had tended play calling wise to go, for some unknown reason, they were going heavy run. Well, the last 2 weeks, they're back to throwing the ball, 307 and 305. All their receivers are healthy now, Omar Bayless and Kirk Merritt together, and they're lighting it up again through the year. Georgia Southern can't stop the pass. Any team that's been able to or has been capable of throwing the football consistently this season has done so against them. I'm really surprised at the downward movement in the total here. I went and checked the weather to make sure it wasn't weather related, but we're going to have clear skies, 40-degree temps. But this game's been bet down from 59 to 55.5. And I just think you have the perfect fundamental matchup here for both teams to move the ball, for both teams to score. Sure, Georgia Southern runs and chews up some clock, but they should be able to run in chunks against Arkansas State's run defense. So maybe a play on the over at this price tag.
Robbie, heading to what Conference USA up next? Western Kentucky at Southern Miss. A good one here, seeing 3 in the hook or 4. That's Southern Miss laying in Hattiesburg, 51.5 being the total, Rob.
Yeah, where group of 5 conference play is concerned this week, Drew. This is as good a game, in my estimation, as you'll find. You get really good quarterback play here. Ty Story has come on like crazy for Western Kentucky. Goal of Tyson Helton, the head coach, to start the season was to bring back the days of Jeff Brom's offense at Western Kentucky. Now, they started the season lousy, and they haven't come close to bringing back the Jeff Brom type offensive numbers, but they've been a lot better recently. And the last time we saw them, before they had the bye last week, they were pouring it on Arkansas, put 45 points on Arkansas. Western Kentucky, with Ty Story throwing the football successfully now, they've averaged over 6 yards per play and gained over 425 yards in each one of their last 3 games. So the offense has made a dramatic increase. That bodes well for them. And to me, this could develop into a shootout, Drew, because I love what Jack Abraham does for Southern Miss. They throw the football very well. Southern Miss defensively, last 3 games, they've seen Rice, UAB, and Texas San Antonio. Not necessarily good offensive team. So I think this is a step up in class for them. I could see both of these quarterbacks going score for score. I watched that Western Kentucky-Arkansas game from kickoff to finish 2 weeks ago, and they were impressive. And I know Arkansas stinks defensively, but it's still SEC players. And against Southern Miss, who has been vulnerable to good attacks this year, if you just go up and down their game logs, we won't do it now, but look at the teams that have had good offenses. They've done damage to Southern Miss. So, you're looking at an opener of 49 for the total here based on reputation. Western Kentucky's been a defensive team all season long. They still hold that tag. Odds makers haven't adjusted. These are the kind of games you like to get to at this time of year. Get these plays and cash these tickets before adjustments are made. Total's up to 51.5 now, but I still think there's room. I think both these quarterbacks do well, and that game goes over.
Good stuff, Robbie. Heading to the next game. This number is surprising to me, Robbie. We're talking Marshall at Charlotte up next. Thundering Herd laying 7 on the road, 55 the total here, Rob.
Surprised which way?
Charlotte is a nice story, but going up against Marshall in that defense, I don't see him having that much success. I made this number higher than 7, considerable amount higher than 7. I don't know. You agree?
Well, the defense, like you say, that's the great separator here, right? I mean, Marshall, and especially if you go through the numbers, it's the run defense. And both of these teams need to run. They both have nice dual-threat quarterbacks. Isaiah Green's been good for Marshall, and Chris Reynolds has been a revelation for Charlotte. Benny LeMay in the backfield. I mean, they need to run the football, and they throw off of that running game. Mm-hmm. Marshall's run defense is far better than that of Charlotte. Marshall inside the conference ranks number 3, only allow 127.5 rushing yards per game. The other side allows 70 more. Charlotte allows 195 yards per game on the ground. To me, that was the biggest separator here. Now, Marshall had an advantageous spot last week. Louisiana Tech suspended their quarterback, Jamar Smith. They suspended their top wide receiver. But give them credit. They took advantage. They won that game 31-10 against the defense that's a lot better than Charlotte's. For Marshall, they're playing for a spot in the Conference USA championship game. They're 5-1 atop the division. They control their own destiny. If they win here, because they own the tiebreaker over Florida Atlantic, and if they finish with a win over FIU, then you're going to see them in that CUSA title game. For Charlotte, the stakes are high because they're 5-5 and looking to get a bowl, and of course a bowl bid means everything for Charlotte. So you'll get huge effort out of both of these teams. But like I say, Drew, I'm with you on the defensive aspect of this, and I'll just add one more piece to that defensive angle. Charlotte's allowed 13 touchdowns of over 25 yards. They give up the big play. Marshall's only allowed 6. They don't give up the big play. So to me, Marshall's the right side. The number, though, I think is right in line. My power ratings had it right in line. So it just matters, which side you like here, how much emphasis you put on the Marshall defense being that much better. That will probably decide which way you go in that game.
Robbie, next game up in the Big 12, Texas at Baylor. We got Baylor 5.5, 59 the total. This one in Waco. Baylor is favored, Robbie, but I don't think it's high enough again. I like both favorites back to back here. We're talking Texas, the worst passing defense in the Big 12. I know Todd Herman as an underdog. It's very impressive, but still, it's only 3-3 in his last 6 as an underdog. Plus the fact Baylor, their defensive line, I think is very underrated, going to make it very tough for Texas. And Matt Rule, you know, what he's been able to do there at Senior Day in Waco, I think Baylor's the side. How do you feel?
All right, we have to have faith in Matt Rule. Here's a team that had Oklahoma 31-10 at halftime last week and somehow found a way to get beat 24-0 on their home field in the second half and lose that game. Can he get these kids back up? There went their undefeated season. It did not take away their chance to be in the Big 12 championship game and get a rematch with Oklahoma, though, so they have to keep winning. These kids have never really been in this spot before, Drew. Baylor hasn't been good since Art Briles, so it'll be interesting to see if Matt Rule can pick them up. I agree with you. They're the better team. Charlie Brewer's a quarterback that I like a lot. I kind of get mad at Matt Rule at times for not using all the weapons that he has on offense. Texas certainly uses theirs. Sam Ehlinger and that offense throw for 300 a game. Again, you know, we're in that swatch of games, Drew, that you and I are covering here, where these totals have me scratching my head a bit. Texas, like you said, can't play much defense whatsoever. They haven't all year long. A lot of that's been due to injury. And Baylor can be explosive. But Texas does score on just about everybody. They move the football all season long. This total sits at 59, which for a Big 12 game that has potential to go back and forth, to me, again, seems low. Anything in the Big 12 that's under 65 is probably low if you get both offenses humming. So we'll see. I'm a little leery of Baylor being giving us 60 minutes of full focus and not remembering what happened last week. But if they do, they're the better team. Obviously, somebody thought so, Drew. This number moved off 3.5 to 6 right away Monday morning, just about. So a lot of Baylor money came in quick. It's come backward a little bit to the 5 that we have now. We'll see how it goes. I think that total might be something to look at, though.
Robbie, next game up here in the AAC, a good one, an early kick here, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Central, talking UCF at Tulane. We're seeing the Knights laying 6 or 6.5 in the Big Easy. High total here, Robbie, 69.5 or 70 being the total. UCF versus Tulane, man.
Yeah, in a UCF game, obviously that's become the norm of what we see. We see anything from 66 and above, depending upon opponent. You know, it was interesting, Drew, to read an article on Central Florida this week and how the players are almost relieved that they have 3 losses. I was a little bit surprised to see that the players that were quoted were saying that we can play free now. We don't have to worry. The burden's off our shoulders. We're just going to go have fun. If Josh Heupel's team just goes and has fun, which I thought they were doing all along on offense, they'll probably get into the 40s. Tulane and Willie Fritz started off the season real well on the defensive side, but they haven't been good against good offensive teams the back half of the season. So UCF, to me, can name their price if that's what they're after, having fun, scoring points. Josh Heupel, a little bit of talk about him being on the hot seat, which sounds absolutely absurd to me, but that's how quick your fortunes change in college football as a head coach. You're on top of the world in week 4, and by week 10 they want to fire you. So we'll see if UCF gets it back here. And I all season long, UCF would tell anybody that would listen how they're getting better on defense, and I don't think we ever saw that out of this team. They've just been the same old team that outscores the opponent, probably the same exact game here. Might make 69 look small, but 69 is a key number in football. 38-31 doesn't cash your ticket, so you have to be a little bit careful if you're thinking of just mechanically playing UCF over. I think they win this game. I'm just not sure they cover the number because I don't trust their defense. And Tulane at home in the season home finale will, this is a pretty good team this year. Willie Fritz going to have them up for this game. An outright upset wouldn't surprise me, but I do think Central Florida will find a way to win.
Robbie, staying in the AAC, we got SMU at Navy. We're seeing Navy 3 in the hook at home, 66.5 the total here, Rob.
How about SMU and Navy playing an elimination game? That's awesome.
Yeah.
West Division in a 3-way tie with Memphis, right? All 3 of them are 5-1. But Memphis has beaten both of these teams, so they need a little help. The winner here has a chance to get to the AAC championship game if, in fact, Memphis would slip up in either of their last 2. And you know what? Memphis's finale, Drew, is against Cincinnati. So the possibility is there for Memphis to maybe lose to Cincinnati, a very good team. If SMU or Navy, whoever wins this game, were to finish and run the table the rest of the way, win their last game, they'd be the champ of the Eastern side. So there's a lot to play for here for both these teams. You know, I saw the weather report for this game late this afternoon. I was gung-ho on this game for a while, and then I saw the weather shift, and it's going to rain all 4 hours of this contest. It's a 3:30 game. They moved it to get it on TV, and on a dry field. I was really liking both teams up and down the field. I think Navy will run at will against SMU. SMU had a week off to kind of rest up. They'd gotten some injuries. Reggie Roberson will not play in this game. But the week off, normally we would say, you know, a week off to prepare for the option. That's great news when you have 2 weeks. But SMU's run defense, I mean, even though it's only given up 124 yards per game, it's not great. I think Navy does some damage here against them. The last season, this game wound up 31-30 in overtime, 61 points. And neither one of those teams last year were close to what they are this year. Navy had an extremely down year. SMU was not good. They could put up a lot more than 61 again if they had the dry track. Continue to watch the weather in this game. I know people will say and bet accordingly to Navy will run the football, Navy will grind out clock, SMU won't have as many possessions. But keep in mind that SMU runs 83 plays a game. They either score quick or they give the ball back quick. They give up chunk yardage to opponents. I really think, Drew, and I wish that that the weather turns here and maybe we get that 4-hour block becoming dry, because if we do, I would be over 66 points in that game.
Good stuff, Robbie. Let's head to the Big Ten. Michigan State at Rutgers. We got Spartans laying 20.5, 43.5 being the total here, Rob.
Yeah, and I could be brief here. There's no way I could play this game except Rutgers plus the 20.5. I know it's the worst side. It's not the pretty side. It's the ugly dog. But it's the team that's playing and trying hard right now. Interim head coach has converted his team as best he can into what he thinks it should look like offensively, with a lot of zone read running of the football, with a big quarterback, freshman quarterback with size 6'4", 250. And they come to play every week despite their record, Drew. It's an excited team. Michigan State's the exact opposite of that. This is a demoralized team that's been buried by every single elite team in the Big Ten, a position that, Michigan State used to hold as well, one of the elite teams. But Ohio State beat them down. Penn State beat them down. Last week, Michigan destroyed them 44-10 in a game where head coach Mark D'Antonio makes no bones about the fact that he dislikes Jim Harbaugh with a passion. But they couldn't do anything about it. They lose 44-10. I think this team is checked out. 20.5 to me is enough to go ahead and get involved with Rutgers, the team that'll try against the team that's just done for the season.
Guys, we're talking with Robbie Veno of sportsmemo.com. Check out his packages at the website. His 5% blue chip totals, 14-7, dating all the way back to last year. His 5% since 2007, 139-90. That's 139 wins and only 90 losses, 61%. So he's hitting the big plays, and also 11-2 in the NBA out the gate. So really knowing the NBA very well on the hardwood. Guys, you can get all of his plays in every sport. 7-day all-access, sportsmemo.com, using the coupon code VENO, VENO 69 at checkout. Gives it to you for less than $10 a day. VENO 69 at checkout for his 7-day all-access for less than $10 a day. Robbie, moving down the card here real quick. We got 2 games left. North Texas at Rice. We're seeing UNT -6 in the hook, 56 the total in Houston.
Yeah, Drew, Rice became a little bit noticeable to me. Not that I was going looking for improvements in Rice, but I was going through some numbers a couple of weeks ago, and I was a little bit surprised how under the radar they actually were playing real competitive games, not scoring points, but the defense was holding them in a lot of games. They wound up getting blown out in one, but last week it finally happened. They got their win. Big day for Rice to have that win, and it's just a tribute to head coach Mike Bloomgren, whose team hasn't stopped playing, even though they're 1-9 straight up. They have not stopped playing. They played hard all season long. I expect they'll play hard here against North Texas. Now, it looks like we'll get Mason Fine at quarterback. Remember, he's got a concussion, but it makes a difference. You don't play North Texas if you don't have Mason Fine throwing the football. So that's something everybody should check into before you go ahead and bet this game. North Texas defense has fallen apart on them. They become one of those group of 5 teams that, if they don't outscore you, they don't beat you. I think Rice has a little more edge to them right now because North Texas has, since they fell apart in that Charlotte game and lost 39-38, a game where I think they had a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter, it's been a little bit downhill for UNT. So I really don't know what to do with the game because of Fine's status. If he plays, they're going to score. Rice put up 31 last week, and North Texas's defense is poor, so you might look that way. But if Fine doesn't play, I would look at Rice. Rice has been pretty darn competitive for the majority of this season, especially in that conference.
Robbie, great stuff as always. Check out his packages, guys, at sportsmemo.com. Coupon code VENO69 at checkout for his 7-day all-access package. 11-2 in the NBA. Really killing it on the hardwood. And, of course, his big plays in college football and the NFL, always up and available. Rob, real quick, you want to throw anything else out before we shut this down?
No, just thank you to all the viewers. We're getting an awful lot of views on these videos, Drew, so it's been a great new thing that we've done here, and hopefully we're giving away information that everybody can use to cash tickets. That's always the goal.
Well said. Robbie Veno, check him out on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. Rob, thanks for the time. Best of luck with your bets. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow with Teddy Covers finishing off the college football Every Game on the Board podcast.